Good afternoon. I'm Chris Scher, Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers and the co-host of this month's episode of the SBE WEBXtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting usually held on the third Monday of the month. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals with more than 4,500 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. The host of today's SBE WEBXtra is SBE Social Networking Committee Chair and Vice President, Kevin Trueblood. Hey, Kevin.
Well, thank you, Chris. Today's guest, I'm excited to have on. I've become a big fan of his page. It's called Behind the Broadcast, and we're going to talk to Parker Rattan, who is the founder of the page that highlights a lot of the professionals behind the scenes, both in video and AV work around the world. And we're going to get some insight to the page that he's created, how things started, and where he sees things going in the industry. We'll get to that in just a few minutes. But first, Chris, you got a little bit of business to take care of.
Thanks. And this is your SBE member update for November 20, 2023. Now that the four-part webinar series Basic RF for IT has been presented and is available on demand, the follow-up series Applied RF Basics has begun. Module 1 of this four-part series streamed live on October 26. Module 2 streamed live on November 16. Modules 3 and 4 will stream January 18 and February 15, respectively. Jeff Welton of Nautel and Gary Cavell of Cavell Mertz & Associates are the instructors. On December 19 at 2 p.m. Eastern, the latest installment of Workbench Tips with John Bissett will be presented. This is a free webinar for everyone, thanks to the support of SBE sustaining member SCMS. Spend an hour and pick up some tips that will help you perform your engineering job more efficiently and even help you earn a raise. You can always access the entire library of webinars by SBE presentations on demand. For more information on these and all the webinars by SBE, go to sbe.org/webinars. The SBE is planning another SBE Ennis workshop to be held just before the start of the 2024 NAB show in Las Vegas. Details are being set now, but save the dates, April 12 and 13. Watch the SBE website, SBE News, and The Signal for more information. The next chapter exam window is in February 2024 for SBE certification exams. The application deadline to take an exam then is January 3, 2024. If you don't want to wait, or if a local chapter exam is not convenient for you or not possible because of in-person restrictions, private proctoring is available. For more information on SBE certification, it's all online at sbe.org/certification. That is your SBE member update for November 20, 2023.
Well, we as broadcast engineers are very familiar with the magic that occurs behind the scenes in our favorite productions because we're the ones that are making sure the cameras are hooked up, they're shaded, that the routers are routing, that the audio sounds good, and most importantly, that our favorite broadcasts get on the air. But it's rare that the public gets a look behind the scenes of what happens behind many of our major productions, be that television, be that inside an arena, be that even radio broadcasts. And that's where our guest comes in. Parker Rattan is the founder of Behind the Broadcast, which is an online community that is focused on highlighting what happens behind the scenes in a lot of these productions. Parker, it's good to have you here.
Hey, thank you for having me. It's surreal just when people announce my name and I'm being asked to come on podcast and guest appearance. So it's super cool.
Well, you have quite an achievement already. We were just talking before we got on the air here about the community that you've built so far. And I want to, before we kind of dive into the numbers, I want to kind of start that in addition to being the influencer that you are today, you are actually in the field. You do have a job working for television productions.
Yeah, that is correct. I'm not just some big corporation that's found a niche market and is trying to exploit a market. I work in the industry. I grew up in the industry, or not grew up in the industry, but I studied in the industry, and now I work full time in the industry. I'm a fiber tech, mainly for Monday Night Football, ESPN, for their studio show. I kind of handle all the connectivity down on the field, pregame, halftime, and postgame. And then I also do camera work. You can find me doing NBC Golf, local sports here in Dallas. I live in Dallas, so I'll do Mavericks or Rangers camera. And And yeah, so it's a passion that I have. It's my life. I live and breathe broadcast. And now with this whole behind the broadcast social media life, it's a whole takeover of broadcast.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So what began as behind the broadcast started as something else a few years ago.
Correct.
It wasn't always something, much like a lot of things that are online, it started as one thing and then developed into another. So can you kind of tell us how this all began?
Yeah, I can certainly go into depth on that. So I definitely had to pivot it from my original idea. My original idea it's called Sports with No Fans, and it's exactly what it sounds like. So it started during COVID in 2020, end of 2020 and 2021, where we were seen as the workers that could only go into these arenas. And the athletes, because during COVID, obviously the fans weren't allowed to go in. So we were like the essential workers, and so we were allowed in these arenas, and I wanted to show what was going on in these arenas that the fans couldn't see during this time of COVID era. And so I thought of some ideas. I was bored out of my mind with really not very much work going on because COVID took a lot of the work out of our schedules. So I was thinking about it, and I came up with the Sports with No Fans, and which was basically showing the behind the scenes of what's going on in these arenas with no fans. For example, a lot of people remember the cardboard cutouts. There was towards the end of COVID, we got to see like these live Zoom virtual feeds coming in, being piped into the arenas on these like LED boards. And then there were a lot of funny things going on too, like toilets being saran wrapped or urinals being saran wrapped every other one so that you couldn't stand next to each other in a urinal. Just some really goofy stuff. And so I started Sports with No Fans. I got my close 20 friends that of mine that we all work in the industry. I said, hey guys, let's just start showing, what's going on here. And so my friends kind of rallied behind me. We had nothing to do. We were kind of bored, and that's how Sports with No Fans was started.
You've got, matter of fact, you sent over a picture of you doing exactly that, which is basically, this is you this is U.S. Open. Is that tennis?
Correct. Yeah, correct. So there was the NBA bubble. Right after the NBA bubble, or right during the NBA bubble, tennis said, hey, let's do our own bubble. And it was the U.S. Open. I've worked the U.S. Open since I started as a runner, and now I'm now a fiber tech on the show. But this was about 4 years ago when I was a camera utility, and what you're seeing in that picture is the women's finals of the U.S. Open. Which, if you don't know tennis or the U.S. Open, it's one of the largest matches of the entire year for tennis, and there's no fans in there. And it's just someone took a picture of me sitting on the court. It's just me and a cameraman on the court, and then you have your flank cameraman everywhere else. Those were the only people allowed in this championship game. And so I'm sitting in this giant arena looking around at the 40,000 empty seats. And that picture right there is really where the birth of Sports with No Fans, the idea, came to be. And then I reached out to my friends and started the page, and then kind of everything was history after that. So that's awesome that you showed that picture just now.
Yeah, well, it was kind of a surreal time for everybody because it was weird being in these empty arenas, and where normally you'd see excitement and crowds getting thunderous, it was just a gentle roar of the air conditioning was all you heard in the background.
Gentle roar of the air conditioning, or maybe even like some piped in sounds from a fake crowd.
Sure,
you know what I mean,
sure.
So certainly an interesting time.
Sure. So it kind of evolved from there that you went from highlighting the work that was happening during the pandemic, but then at what point did it kind of change into what it became now?
Yeah. So it changed. Obviously, the fans started filtering back into stadiums, and at this point, I maybe built up a following of like 2,000 people actually that were interested in what was going on in these COVID arenas. And it was mainly probably 95% people working in the industry. So I knew I had a special market already. And so when the fans were starting to filter back in, I was playing with all these different names. But I knew I needed a name that could embody, what was going behind the scenes. And so I came up with Behind the Broadcast. It was actually when I was going through all the names and then Behind the Broadcast came to hit, I was like, that's it. I don't even need to even question these other names. It's going to be Behind the Broadcast. And so I created Behind the Broadcast, and I started showing kind of what I show now, just like some behind the scenes and how things work, and some like small like coiling videos and some blooper videos as well of like utilities and stuff, which I've really tried to get away from because I want the page to be completely positive. But that's kind of how it started. And then it happened, funny enough, like my big moment where I kind of had a proof of concept that I always believed in, but I can never prove. It happened on Christmas Day of all things. And it's really like for me, a Christmas miracle. I was working NBA, ESPN, college basketball, or not college basketball, NBA, ESPN, Christmas Day basketball. And I was a utility for the handheld center court position. And the utility had his viewfinder flipped up. It's one of the viewfinders that on a handheld, you can actually flip it up and you can see it. And I was sitting behind him, and I was a cameraman myself. I was an aspiring cameraman at the time. And so I was watching him, and I was like, wow, this is really cool watching how he is shooting the game. And for my own personal reasons, I actually started filming the back of his camera, of his viewfinder. And then I looked at the footage after the game, and I was like, oh, this would be amazing for Behind the Broadcast, this page that I'm continuing. And then so I got with the cameraman after the game, and I said, hey, I filmed you working. This is so cool. You have this great tight shot of Chris Paul shooting a 3-pointer. Do you care if I share it on my small page called Behind the Broadcast? And he said, yeah, no problem, man. I'd love you to share it. And I was at about 2,000 followers. And then the next day I was at about 4,000 followers because I sent it to ESPN as well. And ESPN reposted it. And I got to 4,000 followers that day. And that was kind of a proof of concept, like, oh man, people are really interested in this kind of content.
Well, and so now you're kind of become a spokesperson almost overnight, almost, and having to answer to these comments and questions and things like that. Like, how did you feel about all of a sudden being thrust into the spotlight like that? You're used to being behind the camera, now you're in front of it.
Oh, that is a great question. Very nervous. For a long time, I ran the page anonymously. I would never show my face. I just started showing my face about a couple months ago because I felt the page needed a quote-unquote sports spokesperson, so it's just not so much regurgitation of viral videos. It kind of needed like a spokesperson. You hit the nail on the head right there. And I was very nervous. I don't get in front of cameras. I'm not a great talker. I know a lot about a lot of things, but I'm no expert at one thing. So, I'm doing my best out here to try and describe the different walks of life in broadcast. But what really helps the page is, when the experts like yourself as an engineer, comes in and can shed some light on engineering, or the experts on video, or the experts on camera. So I know enough about a lot of things, but I don't know, I'm not an expert at everything.
Well, that's the beauty of these kinds of communities, because we can all kind of chime in, because I could not run a camera nearly as fluidly as that guy could, but right. I can make sure that it's shaded correctly and the picture looks good. Like that part I can do. So yeah,
Exactly.
So have you had any response like on communities like Reddit and Facebook and things like that as well?
Yeah, actually, in the very beginning, I started on Reddit. There's what was the page called? It was called maybe Camera Pros or something like that. And I was on a couple of my videos got on it, but to be honest, I really need to get back onto Reddit. It's a great resource, and it's so full of information. But really, my main focus has been Instagram, a little bit of TikTok, and then like Facebook and LinkedIn, and then just building behind the broadcast as now a business rather than a social media outlet.
Well, yeah, and that's obviously where we're gonna go here, because it's kind of expanded beyond just highlighting sports, which is where you began. But now, I follow that, and you're posting multiple things a day on the story. That's award ceremonies, that's arenas, that's even concerts, things like that. So there's a lot of, obviously we don't just produce sports. That's obviously the one that we do a lot, but even news productions and things like that are all being highlighted here.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad you hit on that, because when I was going through the name for Behind the Broadcast, I chose it because, like I said, it has it encompasses such a wide variety of areas. So, like you just said, you have local news, you have national news, you have live sports, you have live concerts, you have YouTube channels, you have all these different areas that come with broadcast. So that's what's been so great about the page, is just so many people are sharing so many different variations of broadcasting every single day, and it's quite a task to keep up with everyone's DMs. But I do my best, and I try to filter out the ones that I don't think are as interesting as others, and I try to show the good, juicy stuff.
So let's kind of wade into that. So obviously you started getting a lot of requests to kind of speak about what you do and the industry as far as video production, audio production, things like that. So I guess where do we go from here? Because, the way I see it, particularly in broadcasting is expanding beyond just traditional TV and radio. We do just as much for OTT, for all these different venues. Even like the stuff you see at houses of worship is just as big and just as I guess the word is I don't want to say competitive, but these are big outlets that do a lot of the same work that we as broadcast engineers do. So I know there's more people than ever that are interested in it. And what kind of interest are you seeing for people that aren't even in our industry, people that are bankers or just not even videographers or doing what we do? How are you seeing that interest being generated from your page?
The interest, I think I've helped create a massive interest in broadcasting and camera work and behind the scenes positions like producing and directing and shading, because these are positions people really never even thought about. People just think you go out to an event, to a church event, to a sporting event, you plug in a camera and somehow you get TV at your house. I mean, it's not how it works. And so it's something really new that's piqued people's interest. And when you grow up, you're taught, you want to be a fireman, an astronaut, a scientist. But those are all cool things, but it's because no one ever thinks about or knows about some of these broadcast positions. And so I'm getting a lot of like younger age kids, high schoolers, college students, interested in how to get into broadcasting, how to break into the industry. And that's really what I want to try and continue to work on for these people is help create opportunities and learning platforms and educational platforms for these people, because they're out there and they're very interested in broadcast.
Well, yeah, and obviously there's a lot of overlap in that too, in the mission of the SBE, and we can chat offline about all of that, all of those possibilities. Yeah. But I think that's what really interested me about your page, is because, again, anything that gives people insight to what it is we do, because you mentioned, take for instance, you work for Monday Night Football. Well, there's fiber techs, there's camera operators, there's audio operators, there's instant replay operators, there's technical directors, and then there's the crew back at the network, and then there's the crew at the local stations that are all responsible for making this get on the air. So it goes well beyond, just like you said, plugging a camera into a transmitter and there's your picture. Like, there's a lot of people involved.
Oh yeah, completely. Yeah, and it's I call Monday Night Football a traveling circus. I mean, because every week we're in a new city, and this goes for all packages: Thursday night football, Sunday night football, college football. The way kind of TV sports broadcasting works is there's core crews, and these core crews go to the individual cities, and then they'll bring on locals once they're in the cities for extra help. But Monday Night Football, for instance, we travel 100 people per se every week to a new city, and that's, you forget about the people that schedule all of the hotels and the catering and the food for 100 people and all the logistics too. I mean, it's massive. It's a massive group of people that have to come together to put on something as glorious and glamorous as a Monday Night Football or Sunday Night Football or U.S. Open or any major sporting event.
Well, now that's a good point, because what I'd love to see next is somebody take a picture of the catering truck and then do the hashtag behind the broadcast, or tag you, so that they get highlighted too, because those people have to get fed somehow.
Yeah, no, and I've had a couple tags of bad catering, what's going on with this food here, man? This is behind the broadcast. We are eating rubber chicken today.
We had I work at a university that did productions for basketball for ESPN3, and I swear they had pizza every single video game. It's like, it was good pizza, but it's like, can we do something else, for crying out loud?
Exactly. Yeah, it's funny you say that, because when I come home off the road, my wife's like, "What do you want for dinner? Pizza?" I'm like, "Please no pizza." Like, that is like the number one strike meal is pizza. It's easy, it's cheap, and you can feed a lot of people with pizza. And I'm like, let's just not do pizza.
Sure. So have you had a lot of interest from employers and from like a lot of the production companies, and trying to kind of harness what it is you're doing as well?
Yeah, definitely more recently. I have had companies approach me and reach out to me. I actually just recently partnered up with a company out of Santa Monica, California. They're like a merchandise and content creation company. I still own 100% of the intellectual property of Behind the Broadcast, but I've given them the power to use the name Behind the Broadcast to create merchandise, to go out and help find sponsorships and build a website and help generate more revenue, so that there's more opportunity to create more of these opportunities for people. Because right now, I mean, most everything of Behind the Broadcast is me, and with a full-time job in the industry, you can imagine that I don't have time to work on Behind the Broadcast 24/7 and work on those outside things. So I'm bringing on a company that it's really going to help open up a lot of those doors that I've been missing, and they're actually bringing a little bit of a bank with them too. So they're called Inviz.tv. And so look out here, come Black Friday, we're going to be dropping some more merchandise, a really nice hoodie, very high quality hoodie, and a nice hat. But more importantly, after the new year, we're going to start breaking into very niche products, like creating kits for like a fiber tech, or what does the A2 use, or what's on an engineer's, what does the engineer always carry, and we're going to start selling those types of things as well, and coming up with educational videos for things like that. So I'm really excited. You're going to see a huge change in Behind the Broadcast over the next 4 months.
Well, it's interesting because now you're going from, is this how you imagine your career going from being, a guy that was a camera operator wanting to kind of get into the major productions to basically leading an online community like this? Like, how do you feel about this getting the way your career is going?
Yeah, a lot of deep breaths. I have to really calm myself down. I have to really focus in on the important things, and the important things are my day-to-day job. I'm not quitting my day job just yet, but it's something I never ever fathomed of this becoming like this. Like I said, it started as Sports to Know fans, and I always knew that people would take an interest into the behind the scenes. But to be a spokesperson for such a wide variety of people, it's very what's the word I want to say? It's overwhelming, I would say, and I just have to take a lot of deep breaths and focus in. I've always been kind of a go-getter. I've always been kind of like don't tell me what I can and can't do, because I'm going to go out and do it. And so once I saw an opportunity like this beginning to develop, I looked myself in the mirror and I said, hey, this is your chance to make a difference and to change your life. And so that's kind of where I'm at now.
So I guess from your perspective, how do you see the industry going right now? Obviously, there's still a lot of demand for operators. There's still a lot of demand for workers, but much like everybody, everything's shorthanded. So how do you, and plus the nature of companies, of streaming companies, of digital outlets, of broadcasting, all of those have changed. So from your perspective, how do you see things going based on what you're doing and where you think things are going?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Unfortunately, there's been so many budget cuts and networks and other larger companies. They're finding out ways to cut out a lot of cost. Whether that's going to robos, whether that's doing remote productions, and it is taking away a lot of jobs, and so it's taking a lot of creativity and a lot of like what broadcast is out of it, and it's not something that I'm for by any means. So hopefully maybe my platform can help share how important those jobs are, and what you miss, by going to the studio rather than having people out on site, or what you miss by having a robo camera that's using LiDAR to detect motion rather than having an experienced professional cameraman who knows, who can understand movement and understand emotions and understand the story, because it's essential. And unfortunately, these companies, they look at the cost and they look at the line, but it's really beginning to take away from the art of what broadcast is.
Well, that's a good point, because, we having a nice PTZ camera that's automated, that's all well and good, but you really think they could track the basketball as good as the guy in that clip did? I mean, that guy made it look easy.
Yeah, no chance. And, there's pan bar systems, and the technology is getting there. And that's why I kind of was like, before behind the broadcast, I saw, I was like, maybe I want to be more of a technician than an operator, because operators' jobs might not always be there. I think they'll always be there at the higher levels. But, on the lower broadcasts, they're using less and less cameras, or they're moving to PTZs, or just other forms of ways to broadcast. So, you see TVUs used all the time. TVU is an amazing company, or live views as well. But just think of how many jobs that technology is putting out or is taking away from people.
Well, yeah, and at the same time, you could, there's been a lot of debate in what we do, because, it used to be we used 2 gigahertz for everything. We went out and did E&G and used sat trucks, and now it's just one photographer / reporter with a backpack, and there's your shot. So you could say, like, I would say sometimes in some way it kind of repurposed some people because now, the reporters are expected to do more, but there's an opportunity for people that are to get training and doing what they do. And that's where organizations like the SBE come in. And that's kind of where I wanted to go next is, what advice would you give for somebody that's interested? So somebody sees one of your videos and goes, wow, this is technical directing looks really cool, or, being part of these events is really cool. But what advice would you have for them, for somebody that's interested in doing what we do?
Yeah. You can imagine, I get that question just about every day from someone random.
Lots of DMs, I'm sure.
Lots of DMs, whether they're from India or the US or Germany. They come in every day. And, right now, my answer to these people are, go to a local sporting event, go to a local concert, go to a local, anywhere where they're broadcasting something and watch, see who's a part of the team, see who's a part of that program. And, on their downtime, go approach them because, and ask them if there's a local crewer or how did they get into the industry. And then you kind of have to network. Everything about broadcast, in my opinion, and really getting to where you want to be in broadcast is through networking. You might have an opportunity or an entrance into the industry, but once you're into the industry, you have to network. And so my advice to everyone is just, try and open that door for yourself. And then once that door is open, try and find an entry-level position. There's always production assistant positions, runners, utility positions are always a great way to start. And that's how you get in. That's how you learn. And then from there, now you're in. Now you can go check out the technical director and see what he's doing and how he's doing it. And you become friends with that person. The best way I found to get into a position that you really want to work into, you have to create these connections with people, because it's usually the people that you create connections with, and then all of a sudden they're sick or they have to leave for the day or whatever it is. They can't be at that show, and then they're going to call someone to replace them. And then hopefully, you've built up a connection, you've learned kind of their craft, and you can help start getting into that type of work or that field that you're pursuing. That's my best advice right now. But with Behind the Broadcast and, possibly SBE and some other companies I've been talking to, we're going to have opportunities that show more job opportunities for people, job position openings, crewing companies that are looking to fill positions in different events. And yeah, that's really a direction that I want to take Behind the Broadcast in is offering those opportunities. So it's not so hard to get in the industry anymore. And hopefully it makes everything competitive and it raises the level for everyone.
Well, that's true, and I would say that good talent is hard to find. So I would echo your sentiment that being there and showing an interest and even just showing up a lot of times on time and willing to go the extra mile can make a big difference for somebody that wants to get into what we do.
Certainly, yeah, certainly. I mean, that's I said it in one of my podcasts. That 60% of the being a good broadcast worker is showing up on time and being there with a good mindset and wanting to learn. If you show some interest and want to learn, that's a huge part of it, and that's going to take you very far. It'll take you further than you think.
I agree. And this is where I'd say, shameless plug for the SBE and what we do. And there's a lot of opportunities to do that networking and to meet professionals to do that as well. And you provide a nice online community. We provide even local opportunities for people to meet. And if you work in a major market in particular, where there's a lot of the productions like what you do for Monday Night Football, there's a lot of those professionals that gather. So there's opportunities for that. And I can kind of back up what you say. For for particularly students, one thing I can recommend, I mentioned a few minutes ago about doing the athletics broadcast for our university. And I know a lot of colleges and universities do a lot of the same thing that we do, be that for ESPN3, be that for Fox Sports, that they produce the broadcasts. And those are largely student-led in those cases. And I know they are really looking for student workers that will come and be camera operators, can learn to do technical directing, and can learn at the direction of a professional. So there's opportunities for people to get in that way if you're a student, be that at high school level too. Some high schools are doing that as well. So I can say for sure that there's opportunities to kind of step up in those regards. But even for those big professional broadcasts, is there like a job board aside from the SBE? We have job listings there too, but is there a job listings that you know of that people can find those things aside from just Indeed?
Yeah, so hopefully that job board will be, you can find that job board on www.behindthebroadcast.com here really soon. There's companies like Ming Entertainment where I kind of got my foot in the door. PPI, Program Productions, something. I don't know. It's called PPI. They're a huge crewing company nationwide. But yeah, and to what you were just saying about college students and coming into these big shows, it's a threat. It's a huge threat for the professionals that have been doing this for 20 plus years, because they're realizing that these college kids can do the same thing or close to the same thing that they can do, and they can pay them a lot less. So you'll see like Alabama, Auburn, a lot of the SEC schools, they're utilizing their students, and they're creating these programs for their students to do some of these big time games.
That's interesting, because what I've usually seen is the regular games, like the home games that they do that are playing, some small team, but then they'll usually bring in if they've got like a big playoff game or something like that, they'll usually bring in a professional, if it's going to run on ESPN2 or one of the major networks, they'll bring in a truck with a professional crew.
Yes, certainly. However, a lot of people don't know this, but there are remote connections between like the in-house control rooms and things like that directly to ESPN, and ESPN actually can take some of those feeds and take some of those ESPN can take some of those feeds if they need to or if they want to try and save cost.
Yeah, see, you're getting how the sausage is made. You're getting, as you would say, behind the broadcast.
Yeah, exactly. Again, like I said, I'm not a professional or I'm not an expert at anything, but I know enough about everything to kind of talk about it. And so, yeah, like I said, there'll be a website coming up that's going to have a lot of job opportunities, a lot of learning opportunities. Hopefully, I'm going to start a podcast here pretty soon of my own. Maybe it's called the Behind the Broadcast Podcast. And just interviewing people in the industry, cameramen, engineers, directors, all sorts of different areas of broadcasting to help share more light and dive deeper into these niche areas within broadcast.
Cool. All right. Well, any final thoughts on your page and everything that you're doing, Parker? Again, I'm a big fan of your page.
Yeah. Final thoughts is, just continue to keep following the page and watching what's coming up with Behind the Broadcast, because we have so many new things that I'm really excited about. I really would like to dive into the more specifics of things as well. So if you're a professional out there and you are okay with talking in front of a camera, I'd love to have you on or, connect with you and learn a little bit more in depth about what you do from a day to day.
All right. Parker Rattan, he is the founder of Behind the Broadcast. That is on Instagram. That's on TikTok. That's on Facebook. Certainly appreciate you joining us today.
No, thank you for having me. It was an awesome to be a part of this.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin. This has been the SBE WEBXtra, the SBE chapter of the web. We present it monthly, and we hope you'll join us each time. Look for the replay on our YouTube channel. If you hold SBE certification, viewing the SBE WEBXtra qualifies you for 1/2 point in Category G, that's attendance. It's just like attending a local chapter meeting. If you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the SBE Web Extra, send it to us. Send it to webextra@sbe.org. And that does it for this installment of the SBE Web Extra from the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals. Thanks again to our guest, Parker Rattan. And on behalf of Kevin Trueblood, we'll see you next month.